Hi, this is Brad Altman, and you're listening to Chicago Back in the Day.
Welcome to Chicago Back in the Day, a podcast about memories of Chicago back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, Chicago traditions like sports, music, food, music. My name is Pete, and this is a Chicago Back in the Day episode with special guest booking extraordinaire Brad Altman, telling his tales part 2. We worked together back in the day. We're going to catch up on even some more memories. Hey, if you got any ideas for the show or topics, feel free to reach out to Pete at Back in the Day, that blog. Please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and smash that like button on Facebook. All right, let's get back into this. Brad Altman, take 2. What do you think, babe? You had a couple weeks to stew and simmer. You got some more stories for us?
Well, first off, I'd like to say that I think that I love the name of the podcast, okay? But I do think that if you really wanted this podcast to take off in a big, big way,
yeah,
I consider changing the name to the Greg Stephan Podcast.
Well, we did have some comments last week from a certain person that's a Green Bay Packers fan. He had certain comments on the satellite setup at the Cubby Bear back in the day, Brad.
Yeah. And I do recall him being that guy I was describing who was sweating profusely while he was trying to figure out what satellite the Packers game was on.
He had the EpiPen trying to get the DJ up.
Oh yeah. He's great. I mean, before you and I even talked last time, I said one of the people I asked you about was Greg.
Yeah,
because he's such a great, memorable guy that worked there, and somebody that we really had a lot of laughs with. And there's a few others that are one that passed, and some others that are just really were
instrumental.
It was quite a cast of characters at the
we were successful despite all these characters.
These guys tried to drag us down, especially Greg and his best friend, Dr. Death, tried to drag us down.
Greg, I think it's the South. I think it's Southwest coordinates 5.12. Try that. And stand on one foot and wave your right hand. All right. So Greg, hey, thanks for listening out there. And if you ever want to get the story straight, come on board, and we'd love to have you on. Now, Brad,
we'd love to hear your version, since everybody has their version of the Cubby Bear story.
Well, everybody's memories can be the same over 30 years.
That's exactly.
At least. So where do we leave off of? 89, 90, somewhere in there? We were talking about jazz and country.
Yeah, we were talking about when we started to, bring these different types of music on board, and why we were really what pointed us in that direction. And I think that the thing is, we were not it's not a small venue. You can't think, in other words, right. In other words, I would have loved to have done like some of the little stuff that was going on at Lounge Acts, in other words, that was really cool. I would have loved to have done some more of that really cool up and coming band that has 50 followers, 50 people that come see him, but they're really great. And, we think they're going to be stars and stuff. We didn't have that available to us, because when we opened those doors, there's obviously a certain cost associated with doing it, but also we're a cavernous place.
Yeah.
So the things we did, we had to think big or it really didn't make sense to even do it. So for example, a great comparison is Uh, right down the street from us, you had the Wild Hare, the famous reggae bar. One of the, before they remodeled it, probably the coolest place in Chicago. Okay, or one of the coolest places in Chicago.
Or the feds remodeled it.
Well, whoever was responsible for it. We don't want to upset any of those people.
Yes.
So who may be listening to still all my phone calls.
Well, Aster Black. We'll edit that out in post.
Yeah. So, I think that's a good example of, here's a very great, cool genre of music that peaked in popularity at the time that we were doing, that we were really hitting our stride musically, and where we were able to go out and get the big name reggae people and have them come in and play, where, we weren't a reggae bar, and there was a reggae bar half a block away from us, but would never have made sense there because it was either too expensive or was, so we would have, right. So we would have somebody like Toots and the Maytals, and 1,000 people would show up, and where did we come? Right. But where would we come up with Toots and the Maytals? Well, it's not like we knew more about reggae music than the guys right down the street. They suggested it. I'd be walking down, or we'd be walking down the street. I think I was walking down the street with George one day, and we're walking past the Wild Hare, and, oh, we see you guys are doing all this great stuff, and we really like, the variety and everything. You should start doing some big reggae shows. I said, well, who would you guys recommend? And literally started writing down what they were saying, and then calling that afternoon and trying to get those guys to come play. And that's one example of how things happen. But, we were shut out of certain avenues musically because there was one dominant force in Chicago for, probably 15, 20 years, even before we got started. So they were used to having to, it all to themselves and calling all the shots and developing the national bands and doing this and that, and taking them from the club level to the theater level to the arena level. So we were never going to get those people. So how are we going to become relevant? How are we going to become busy? How are we going to become? Well, we had to find other directions. And, fortunately, that's what we were able to do with, obviously, country music. Reggae was one. The smooth jazz that we talked about last time with WNUA, when we created that smooth jazz concert series that was so successful. And then, we did some straight on jazz. One of my favorite things that we did that people don't really think about as much, or you don't hear about as much from people, is the Guitar Heroes series of stuff we did. Do you remember Eric Johnson?
Yeah.
Guys that were, we brought in guys that were
Edgar Winter, Mr. Albino, and Yellow Man on the reggae.
Right. Johnny Winter. And, we brought in people who, weren't even played on the radio at this point in their career. But because Chicago has so many musicians that live in the town and so many guitar players, they all wanted to come out and stare at these guys playing guitar, and see them. So I guess the most surprising thing to me looking back at it is none of these genres of music were really getting promoted, or were really having shows in Chicago, because they didn't fit into the format of what the big promoter was doing. So in other words, like, yeah, they do an alternative country show every once in a while of somebody who was like a crossover country folk thing at the Park West. But
Fitzgerald's.
fits right. But if you were a big name country star, or if you were somebody who was up and coming in country music, there was nowhere for you to play in Chicago. If you were a big name jazz star, well, you could go play the teeny little jazz club for a week. But really, there was, yeah, you could, yeah, or you could. I mean, it just really, there really wasn't a promoter who took an interest in those types of music and took advantage of the fact that we're in the third largest market in the United States, and there's a lot of people with a lot of diverse tastes. And I think that the key to our success was we were able to branch out and do all these different things and do them all well, and bring in people who the customer was excited to see, and they'd never had a chance to see them before in Chicago.
Brett, how did Jeff Quatnitz come into play in all this? There was a mixture of people booking back then. We'd take whatever shows we could get. How did he come into play?
He was a graduate student at Northwestern, and he was partners with Pete Katzis in a company called Q Productions. And Pete is best known for, he was the original booker behind the Cabaret Metro. So when Joe Shanahan opened Cabaret Metro many decades ago, Pete was the guy who booked all the shows, and he was a superstar. So he had tremendous connections throughout the music industry. And the way we came to meet those guys was they managed Material Issue. So, I knew Jim prior to that, on a personal level,
yeah.
But that's how we got to meet Pete and Jeff. And because we had a relationship with Jim and with Material Issue, and we were all close friends, they agreed to help us out, to help give us, if we were going to ever knock down that door and ever get into some of those XRT shows and those alternative shows that we really wanted to be able to do, those were the guys that were going to be able to give us the cred, because they were important to these agents, because they looked at them and they were right. Because if you look at what they did after the Cubby Bear years, when they managed Korn and Fred Durst and, all the Kelly Clarkson and all the people that Jeff managed over the years, which is, and all the tours that they did. And they were right, those managers and those agents, to consider Cubby Bear, because of our affiliation with Jeff and Peter, in order to court their favor, that they might work with them with one of their artists down the road. So it's kind of, they were helping us get some credibility in those circles, because what was other than money, what was the incentive for an alternative act, an agency that specialized in alternative acts, to come work with the Cubby Bear when they'd worked with Jam successfully for 20 years and probably figured they're going to work with them for 20 more? Why would they take a chance at alienating, this very successful promotions company to work with us? I mean, why would you do that? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to do it unless you're using us as a tool, the Cubby Bear as a tool, to either get somewhere else, like with Jeff and Peter, or to make your act more money. One thing that happened, for sure, that happened from the Cubby Bear becoming so successful and becoming a player nationally, was that let's say that you were in a band, and which is a scary thought, but let's say that you're in a band, you're the lead singer, and
even scarier.
No, but uh, Jam tells you where you're going to play, when you're going to play, how much you're going to make, and where you're going to play next time, and pretty much controls your career in Chicago. Now here comes these other guys, and I whisper in Jim's ear, and I go, Jim, these guys are tremendously underpaying you. They're giving you $1,000 to go play at Metro in front of 1,500 people, for $20 a head. Where's all that money going? And for somebody like Jim, that gets his attention, and he's like, yeah. Why am I playing for them when I could play at the Cubby Bear? And it's not so much the guarantee we'd give him, but he knew that he would sell out. In other words, didn't matter where they played at that point. They were going to sell out. Okay. So if you're going to do a show and gross $20,000 in ticket sales, why shouldn't the artist that was my sales pitch. Why shouldn't the artist make most of that? Yeah, we need to make X amount of dollars to cover our costs and cover, security and sound and lights and advertising, etc. But my pitch was, you should get the rest. We're getting the bar. Why shouldn't you get the rest? And that resonated, Pete, as you'd imagine it would, to a young musician who's been, the last 5 times they played Metro, they made $1,000, and now all of a sudden they're walking out of Cubby Bear with 7,500.
That New Year's Eve show, was that the first biggest show that was Urge Overkill with them?
Yeah, that New Year's Eve show was Urge opened. Well, I think we called it a co-promotion. So okay. I think they were co-headliners at that time, because Urge had the big hit, Pulp Fiction. Yeah. So, but Material Issue was really the headliner, and they closed the show. That was the night Mike got sick.
Yeah, he said he got food poisoning. I said it wasn't us. It wasn't us, man.
It wasn't us. No, but I remember him having food poisoning. It was horrible. Because we had a hell of an after party after that show, as you can imagine, living a half a block down the alley.
Not even a half a block.
Not even a half a block. And it was New Year's Eve. So yeah, that was quite the, that's one of those you can't tell stories from. So, but anyhow, that's where Jeff and Peter came into it. And I think that they added some credibility for us with, mainly with the agencies like the CAAs and the William Morrises, people that were courting Jeff and Peter to work with them. Therefore, they were able to help us.
And we had their help, and then we also needed XRT's help, Norm Weiner and the boys there when it was Diamond.
Well, we wanted to work with XRT. Yeah. But XRT was the station that was most in bed with Jam.
Got it.
And they were the hardest one to ever get
those letters.
Well, here's the thing. We had a great relationship with them. We were friendly with them. I was very friendly with, and George was very friendly with Lynn Bramer and obviously Norm, and they were all, they treated us great. They just wouldn't work with us. They liked us, but they'd go, do you have any idea how much these guys spend on our station a year in advertising? Why are we going to? Okay. So I knew, and I remember George and I talking about this. We got to get an act that XRT can't say no to. In other words, we got to get them booked. We got to get them locked in before somebody backdoor tries to talk them out of playing with us and going to play somewhere for jam. We got to sneak in there and get something. And the show wound up being that big blues show that was the night after Michael Jordan won his first title.
Oh, what was it?
It was Coco Taylor. It was Elvin Bishop.
Oh my God.
Wait, I'm listening. I had the satellite on in the car the other day and an Elvin Bishop song came on. I was like, oh my God, I got to remember to tell that to Pete. But yeah, and that was the one where they said, you know what? This is really cool. We're on board. Let's do this together. And what also made it possible was that Jam didn't do a lot of blues. Yeah. So it wasn't like it was going to ruffle anybody's feathers. But yet it got us into the XRT, you know, we're now all of a sudden we're in the ball game. And then here comes Material Issue. Here comes Urge Overkill. They're playing them in heavy rotation on the radio. Well, they can't ignore us. Mm-hmm. We got these guys. They're playing here. And that's really how it happened. And there was definitely help from Peter and Jeff, who had a relationship with Norm. But the truth is, if we didn't, we had to get the acts because we couldn't get them. I mean, okay,
there's only so much you can overpay, right?
Well, it's not overpaying if A, that's what they're worth,
right,
and B, it's not, you're not losing on the show. So to me, yeah, for Jam, it would seem insane to pay some band $7,500. But to us, if the door was 10 grand or 15 grand, whatever it would turn out to be, and we weren't losing on the door, the idea was break even on the door, make a little money, and make our money at the bar, because we got a full bar on a night when if we didn't have this band, we'd have nothing.
Right.
So that was the thinking there. And so, okay, I'm gonna tell a strategy that I've never told anybody before.
All right, okay? let me get my crayon out.
This is now the strategy was, okay, it became clear after throwing money at these alternative acts, some just wanted to play Metro because Metro was cool, because in their minds that was where Soul Asylum should play, or that's where Trip Shakespeare should play, So some of them, the money, it just wasn't going to matter no matter what you did. But my thought was, how do we keep them off of what we're doing? So in other words, we're starting to become very successful. We're doing well with NUA. We're doing well with we're starting to work with XRT.
Now we're 90, 91 or getting into 91.
We're in 91. And
91,
we're starting to really have a relationship with XRT. We got a great relationship with US 99, really an exclusive relationship with them. We got an exclusive relationship with NUA. We're working with, things are clicking. We're doing big reggae shows. We're doing, just the place is busy every weekend. So of course Jam takes notice of this, even though it's really not stuff that was in their wheelhouse. But now they're starting to bid on our stuff. Now they're starting to want to get in the business of the stuff we're doing. which by the way, later, if you look at what the music format of the House of Blues turned out to be, it's pretty much a replica of what the Cubby Bear was in the late 80s and early 90s in terms of really being an eclectic mix of music, really doing anything cool. House of Blues was anything that, and that really was what we were, was anything that's cool that we think people are going to really like and really going to want to see, and it's going to help us make our name bigger and increase our profile. We're going to do it. So, okay. So Jam's starting to sniff around our stuff. My theory is keep them as busy as you can chasing our tail, and you'll keep them off of the stuff that you really want. In other words, let's say there's 10 bands. I know there's no way we're getting these 10 bands. No chance we're getting these 10 bands. Bid on them anyways. Bid crazy on them. Bid, because number one, worst case scenario, Jam's going to have to pay triple what they want to pay, and it's going to drive them nuts. Okay. And it's going to keep them busy because they're like, man, they're coming after all our stuff. Wow. So the thought was they won't have time to worry about this. Here, look at this over here while we're busy over here doing this thing that we really are intending to do. But we're going to draw you in with these offers these crazy offers we're making on Poi Dog Pondering and, and Soul Asylum and Trip Shakespeare and anybody else that you would have automatically associated with Jam and associated with Metro. Heck with it. We're going for it. We want them all. We want it all. We want everything. And we're coming after you. We're going to try to get everything. But the reality was, we were never getting that stuff. We were going to get Material Issue because Jim was my roommate. We're going to get, we're going to get Urge Overkill because we all hung out together. So, but the reality was that our bread and butter was going to be the country. It was going to be the blues. It was going to be the jazz shows. It was going to be these other things. And can we keep them busy while we focused on that? And then we booked Johnny Cash.
The Man in Black. I was waiting
and everything everything changed. Everything changed. Not the day he played there.
Yeah.
The day he was booked there.
Yeah.
They fought that so hard, Jam. They tried every way they possibly could to convince his manager, and I'm trying to think of his name now, and I know his last name was Rubin. I can't think of his first name. It's been 30 plus years, but but just trying to convince them, hey, these are bad guys. It's a horrible place. It's a shithole. Yeah. And and Johnny's not going to like it there. These guys are, they can't afford the guarantee. Stuff like that. That's the stuff they would regularly put out there to anybody to try. I mean, that was the stuff that we were fighting against on a daily basis, was this misinformation campaign about who we were and what we were. Oh, it's a baseball bar across. Well, it is, but we're paying real money, and guess what? We're becoming pretty cool. While time's going on here, all of a sudden there's some pretty cool stuff going on, and people are pretty excited about it.
On a day where the Cardinals are playing.
Yeah, that was interesting. Was it an SIU day or was it?
It
It was
doesn't matter. It was wall to wall. You needed Vaseline to get in and out.
well, I remember the date. It was July 21st, 1991. And it was a Saturday. And there was a Cubs game, as you said. And of course, we had the usual packed house pre-Cardinal Cubs game, pre-game, and then the packed post game, which we got all we could out of it, and then we hosed it down. And
please leave your money at the table and leave.
I mean, that was one of the rougher turnarounds. Ooh. But what a day! I mean, we opened at, I don't know, 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was, 9 in the morning. And then by the time Johnny's second show was done, the guy was like 75, and he's doing 2 shows. And it wasn't just Johnny. It was entire family and cousins. It was the entire family, which I'll be honest, I didn't understand at the time how cool that was.
Yeah.
And have gained an appreciation over the years of how cool it was that we had June Carter Cash there, and their son John. So, that was a lot. It turned out to be a lot more, even more meaningful than we thought. But I remember Jim from Material Issue, Jim Elson, had a original recording of "I Walk the Line," and he came backstage and had it autographed by Johnny. I mean, it was,
oh, no kidding.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was, he thanked me for that. Man, I got to meet Johnny Cash. So that really was, the whole country took notice of us when Johnny Cash played there.
That's a show Jorgensen came in at the end?
No, he didn't come in at the end. He called me 2 weeks out and said, "Hey, Brad." And now Jorgensen, of course, came through the association with Pete. Pete managed him when they were Ministry.
For the people who don't know, we're talking about Al Jorgensen, Ministry.
Right. Ministry, okay. Later the Revolting Cocks, and who later were to play at the Cubby Bear.
And the 10,000 something DJs.
Yeah. And Al called me on the phone, and Pete gave him my number, and Al called me and said, I heard about this Johnny Cash thing. He goes, "Bro, this is like, amazing." He goes, "I'd give anything to be able to DJ between shows." He goes, "I can DJ country." And I was like, there's no way you could say no to that. There was no way you could say, first of all, he's a good guy. He's a really good guy. And secondly, it kind of really added another cool aspect to the show. I mean, that show was grandmothers, and it was 21-year-old rockers.
All in the pit with the stanchions up. I mean, the old police stanchions, I thought were in front of the stage. And I mean, it really was the thing that, and listen, we'd done a lot of work. Johnny Cash didn't just happen out of the blue. Okay. Right.
There was all that work we did with Nashville and all those shows we did, and all that, paved the road to get to that point. But when we had him, now all of a sudden people are like, this guy didn't play clubs, Pete.
Yep.
He hadn't played a club in 30 years. Okay. Now he's playing in right after he's playing post game from the Cubs Cardinals. Okay. He's and by the way, our post game entertainment brought to you by the Lucas Brothers.
You got people doing the one-handed lean outside while the earth is spinning.
I mean, it was, I mean, I'll never forget that day. That's one of the greatest days of my life.
Well, you could have told me Al Jorgensen was coming in. We didn't have a.
I don't think I told anybody because I was 50%. I was 50%. He wasn't going to show, So you know,
Yeah,
and
but but little did I know what this Al Jorgensen looked like. But this little guy with dreads and earrings trying to pop over the VIP to get into the DJ booth and had to be escorted out the door. That's not a good vibe.
I liked keeping you on your toes at that time.
Yeah, that's sort of up there with the Smashing Pumpkins.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So, I mean, so that really was, I really think that was the thing that anyone who was on the fence about what we were doing, and I think it's the happiest I've never seen George that happy. That's the happiest I ever saw him.
And his dad.
It's the happiest I ever saw him. And I'll never forget that day. And, it felt like, I don't know, almost like, you work your whole life to accomplish, and then that's like the cherry on top, So
even Greg Kot liked that show.
He did, and Greg didn't like a lot of things.
He didn't like at the Cubby.
No, I mean, listen, we had our fans, and we had our detractors, and you're and you're going to have that, and that's
fair enough.
The media is fickle, as we found out.
Well, especially with no internet or anything, right? I mean,
internet.
Cot was pretty big. Reader was pretty big. You had to make sure those guys were taken care of.
Well, and Dave Hoekstra.
Yeah, Hoekstra,
who was the Suntan. Now, I'd known Dave since I was 12. So Dave was always on board with us. And, Dave and I used to sit in the bleachers together at Wrigley growing up. So, we always had a good relationship with Greg. Greg just didn't like a lot of stuff. He just was, he preferred the stuff. He preferred the stuff we never were going to get.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
So, but then, there was a jazz writer, Frank Reich, who loved that we were bringing in these big jazz acts. And, he was a big fan of what we were doing. I think overall that our press was good. I think that we got what we wanted out of it, which was we're trying to raise our profile as something more than what people knew the Cubby Bear to be. Everybody knew the Cubby Bear. That's one thing. It's not like you had to give anybody directions to come to a show at the Cubby Bear.
Right.
Okay. Everybody knew where the Cubby Bear was. So what we were trying to do was add to the perception of the Cubby Bear beyond, the people that already loved it as a baseball bar. And I think we did a pretty good job of that.
And of course, they weren't all winners because,
well,
you had to get that Sunday morning phone call.
That sounds like a technicality.
You had 9 winners in a row. So what?
Right. Listen, I'll tell you something. We better have had 9 out of 10 winners, because if we didn't, okay, somebody else was going to be sitting in that chair. So now, what we did to ensure that most of them, let's say 80%, 85% were winners for us, was like we talked about last time, when you have that radio support, you're pretty much locked into, you're going to have a captive audience. You're going to get people out to see your shows. So we didn't do a lot of shows. We may have done shows where we spent a lot of money, like Johnny Cash, but we knew they were going to succeed. It wasn't like we were taking some wild chance, or if we were doing a big radio show, well, we knew we had US 99, or we knew we had NUA behind it. they were going to push it and make sure it's sold out or pretty darn close. So, we really weren't it felt like it more then than it does now. We really weren't in that big a risk-taking business. In fact, I remember calling the manager or the agent for the Rippingtons. His name was Mario Torrado out of Agency for the Performing Arts in New York. And I remember calling him and talking to him about a show that was not selling well. Don't remember the name of it, but whatever it was, wasn't selling well. It was the first smooth jazz show that wasn't selling well, and trying to convince him to give us a reduction on the guarantee so we wouldn't get hurt as bad.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, Brad, do you realize you've done 15 shows with us and the first 15 have all made money? He goes, just take one for the team here. It's, I said, wait a second.
Hold on.
I said, I don't know who you work for.
You paid that man his money.
Right. But I work for a guy who doesn't remember those 15 shows. He only remembers when I'm wrong. So, but for the most part, I think we won for the most part. I think we weren't looking to make a huge amount of money at the door. We were looking to, fill the place,
right,
and have a busy bar and take a place that, as we talked about in the very beginning, when the first conversation ever came up about doing music again at the Cubby Bear. Hey man, we know we're going to be busy to whatever degree it is, 81 days a year and maybe some Cubs playoff games. But what are we going to do the other 280 days a year?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we found a way to fill a lot of those days. And keep this in mind too. We weren't just filling weekends, because what we discovered was if the show's big enough, it doesn't matter what night it is. You know where the first big hip hop show in Chicago took place?
Where?
Cubby Bear.
And
Jungle Brothers, A Tribe Called Quest, and KRS-One.
Do you remember?
February of 91.
And that was the
Tuesday.
middle.
It was a Tuesday and it was a blizzard.
And it was packed. And the DJ back then, you had the east side and the west side. And I forgot what the DJ did. He played the wrong record, and we almost had a revolt in the house. Was it Tupac and Biggie?
I just remember that I was in a car with Meadowlark Lemon's son from the Harlem Globetrotters. And that he was somehow in charge of something. And I just remembered it. And I do remember it was pretty darn cool that we did that. It was one of those like unexpected,
It wasn't cool inside. It wasn't cool inside when we played the wrong music, brother. It was not cool.
Well, hey,
We learned.
That was the last big hip hop show we did at that time.
Now get off music real quick.
Sure.
Was that also the same year that MJ won his first title?
Yes, it was the same year that MJ won he won it in June of that year. It was a Thursday night. He won it in LA. As you know, you and I and I forget what was the older gentleman's name.
Let's see, it was Jen, it was Rugi, it was
no, but I mean that the older fellow that worked for George.
Oh God. I'm gonna have to go check the archives.
The senior citizen guy that George started having around at the very end.
He was not out with us. He was not out with us.
We took him with us.
Oh.
We took him with us to LA.
Did he come back?
I don't remember. His body did.
We are in the very back wall of the Forum. Great seats.
Well, listen, it was
we snuck our way back down.
We snuck our way down behind the Bulls bench.
And somewhere along the way, you see a bunch of Cubby Bear jerseys hopping up and down with number 1.
Well, I'll tell you something. We knew the Bulls were up 3-1 at that point. The Lakers it was Magic Johnson's last game before he announced he had HIV. So, the Lakers, who had been, the Showtime Lakers and so successful for so many years, they were kind of at the end of their run. Half the team was injured, and so we knew the Bulls were going to win that night. And we wanted to be there to see it. I mean, it's a historic. I mean, my mom still has that ticket stub in glass, at home from that, and pictures of us. I think there's pictures of us laying on the floor at the Forum.
I take a snapshot of that. I have no proof that I was there.
I'll get one from my mom and I'll send it to you because she has pictures of us after they cleared the floor and the Bulls were now celebrating in the locker room. There's pictures of us like under the scoreboard at the Forum.
Oh, I definitely want some of that. All I remember about that place was trying to get out of there. What is it? Ingleside, trying to get a cab post game. Forget about it.
It's funny that you bring that up because over the weekend I was watching that movie about the Williams sisters, Serena and Venus.
Yeah.
Called King Richard with Will Smith. Great and fantastic movie. And it takes place in Inglewood, which is where they grew up, which was the same place as where the Forum was. And see, I was my first time in LA. I was unfamiliar with Los Angeles at that time. I didn't understand that everything wasn't a short cab ride away like it is in Chicago. And I didn't understand that we were in Inglewood and that maybe that wasn't a great place to try to get a cab.
Yeah.
Now, as it turns out, if you've seen on TV where the Rams and Chargers play now, they built that beautiful $6 billion SoFi Stadium right across the street from where we were at the Forum. That's the old Hollywood Park racetrack. That's where they built it. So that's where that stadium is. And so we were actually right across from the new SoFi Stadium. That's where we were in the street trying to get a taxi cab, which we eventually did.
Yeah, by hopping on a car. I don't know if it was a taxi or not. It became one. But we did get out of there. That was
did get out of there, and we hit some clubs. I think we hit the Whiskey a Go-Go maybe and a few other places, and
we were gone.
Yeah, I mean, we had a fantastic, and then we flew back on the first thing smoking back to Chicago because we had that big XRT show with Coco Taylor and Elvin Bishop.
Oh my God, that's right.
Yep.
Holy cow!
That show was the next night.
That's old school right there.
We had to be back, so we're on a 6 a.m. out of LAX on our way back to Midway.
Midway.
We took Midway Airlines. Doesn't even exist anymore.
Propeller plane.
I think it was a propeller.
We're sitting in the back with the chickens.
I think the pilot had a guide dog.
It's never good to have a pilot with an eye patch.
No, I'll tell you what. Seriously, we were lucky to get out of that trip alive.
Oh, but
that could have gone wrong a lot of times.
That could have made a lot of headlines.
So that was a pretty exciting time to be in Chicago.
So
the Cubs had really started to turn it around in '89. And so yeah.
So Brad, where do we cut it off? We're in the middle of '91, getting to '92. Is that where we're cutting it off here?
Yeah, because the rest of the story to tell is, you know, why did we win Polestar? Why did we become National Nightclub of the Year? How did it happen that occurred? Which is a very interesting story. And, I'm shocked that it ever happened. But anyway, with all the pressure that was applied against us. So, and then the story is, well, what happened after that? And then where did everybody go? And,
right.
What happened to, country music left with me. And I went on to do that for a living for 15 years, working for 20 different radio stations around the country, booking their hoedown fest at so-and-so and getting their talent for them and stuff. So, so it's interesting, Whiskey River became what it became, which was, one of the hottest. I was very hot. It did great. We were at a lot of success there. And, I really, I fell in love with working with those country people. They were so nice. And so, it's kind of what happened to everybody and where we all went and then who took over,
right?
And what they tried to do and how they put the Cubby Bear music out of business and, and stuff like that.
All right. Brad, always leave them wanting more.
I totally agree. That's what she said.
That's what she said, or he. So,
right.
So, okay, Brad. Part 2 is over. We got a part 3 coming up.
Okay.
This is getting pretty good, Brad. I think the listeners are on the edge of their seats. I know I am. I can't wait for next week.
Well, you were there, and we did it together, and
right or wrong.
Yeah, right or wrong, mostly right. Mostly right. I mean, we didn't have a lot of room for error, buddy.
You're 20 something years old. You're winging it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we had a lot of margin for error.
Yeah.
I mean, if we messed up, it was over for us.
Yeah.
And there would have been the next guy coming in or girl, woman
picking up the rifle. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's so we must have done something right to still be talking about it 30 years later.
30 years later on this podcast. Can't wait for
years later on this podcast.
Can't wait for part 3.
I'll tell you, I got nothing but good memories about it. And, it was such a fun time in our lives, I mean, especially for me growing up not far from Wrigley Field and, just, you never thought in a million years that it would happen. And,
it happened.
It happened. It's a great experience. And I'm so glad we did it. So anytime you want, just let me know and we'll do the third one.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Brad.
All right.
And maybe
brother.
If anybody's listening out there, we can have them, come on, Susie, Jeff, Duff, anybody, come on, give us your version of the truth.
Duff can tell us about how he carried up all the beer from downstairs while we were booking the bands.
Oh, that's going to leave. That's going to leave a mark.
No. Wait a second. He was 21 years old.
He wasn't that old.
He may not even have been 21.
Oh wait, we're the same age. Never mind.
I'm not taking anything away from Duff. He just didn't have anything to do with this.
Right.
I mean, let's give Jen Schenkel credit for booking the bands then. If we're going to give Duff credit, you know what I'm saying? Or let's say give Jose credit. Let's Jose thought of Johnny Cash.
Miro.
Yeah. I mean, let's give everybody credit. But I'm just saying, listen, Duff, as it turned out, became a tremendous concert booker and then later started, I know my wife worked with him on some casino stuff. So I know he's had a great career, and I wish him all the luck and all the success. But he didn't have anything to do with this. So, neither did, another nice guy, Michael Yerke, who I only know from playing basketball together at East Bank Club. It's the only time I ever met him. Camille, lovely person, but she didn't have anything to do with the Cubby Bear becoming National Nightclub of the Year. Those people, that's for the next episode, but
right.
Those people, everybody can discuss once it ended this chapter, how they tried to emulate it or tried to keep it going and
pick up the baton.
How they succeeded or how they failed or how whatever.
Yeah.
But that's their story to tell.
That's
I don't
right.
know anything. I don't know anything about that story because I was busy moving on with my life and doing Whiskey River.
Whiskey River. Oh, Brad, you are a pistol as usual.
I'm just trying to.
You're just saying.
I'm just saying that I understand that there's, my version of the truth, your version of the truth.
That's right.
Their version. I understand everybody has their version, but in this particular case, it's irrefutable that they had nothing to do with it. And if they claimed throughout their life that they did, well, they should probably call all those people and apologize and, and tell them that they didn't because they didn't have anything to do with it. So there you go.
Brad, on that note, the emails are coming in. Thanks for listening to Chicago Music Back in the Day. Please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Smash that like button on Facebook, Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. Let us know what you'd like to hear about the upcoming shows. Complaint department, Brad Altman at gmail.com.
No, Brad Altman 11 at Gmail.
At Gmail. Please.
Feel free to write me. I got nothing but time. I'm retired. I'll read your complaint emails at the pool.
You hear that, Stefan?
No. Let me tell you something. Real quick about Greg Stefan.
Yeah.
It's quite possible. I will acknowledge that I do not remember who thought of bringing the Green Bay Packer backers into Cubby Bear. So it is quite possible that was
a window of opportunity.
No. It's
okay.
I don't remember it.
Okay.
I don't remember specifically whose idea it was to bring the Green Bay Packer fans in. It could very well have been Greg, since he's a Packer fan. We may have I think we started with the Browns and the Steelers, and then I think, it's very possible. So in other words, that particular person's memory of what happened back then, that has a chance to be true. Whereas these other people who claim to be, a significant part of whatever, well, we know for a fact that it's not true because you were sitting there with me in the room. So I don't remember stopping Duff from carrying up beer and asking him to come in the office and give me give me booking advice.
I think we're losing.
Duff, what do you think of Johnny Cash?
I think we're losing internet connection here, Brad. Till we meet again. Bye.